For 3 years, Ali was a translator for the US Army in his home province of Helmand. In May, he took a bus to Kabul for an interview at the US Embassy and has waited since then at this guest house. Last week, he was approved for evacuation, but he has heard nothing more.
When I wake up in the morning, so I check it again, but there was nothing. So I called to my other friend that nothing happened, and he said, like, be patient.
Ali is one of about 20,000 Afghans who have applied for a special immigrant visa. Those who worked for at least 2 years for the US government or military are eligible. The process has been long and advocates say increasingly confusing.
A lot of people have received offers to relocate them and evacuate them safely out of the country. The problem we're seeing is that these people are responding to the letters, and at this point there are some that are saying it's been a week, it's been 7 days, and they've had no response back.
As the Taliban take more territory, the stakes are rising for many of those who worked with foreign forces.
All of my relatives and the other people who are living in our area, they know me. Like this guy was an interpreter, and they will tell to Taliban, like, there are some people that they will tell, like, he was a linguist. So I will not go never to that area again.
Arzu Amiri worked as a translator for the US Department of Defense and State. She first applied for a visa in 2017. Her application is under review.
It's really difficult to survive here, and every day I'm waiting if I get any email for relocation and evacuation. But unfortunately, we don't have COM approval yet, so it's making me hopeless. Who knows, I will get it or not.
In a statement, the Taliban said Afghans who have worked with foreign forces should not be scared. It says it hopes interpreters stay to serve their country, and if they do, they will not be threatened by the group. Interpreters we spoke to found that hard to believe.
It's not easy to trust on Taliban. We cannot guarantee our lives with them. I cannot trust them.
Security is tight, with the US Embassy refusing to release any information about who is on the flights, when they will leave Kabul or arrive in the United States, in order to protect those who are leaving Afghanistan. With these flights expected to continue for the next month, they're worried any information could put further evacuees in danger. Charlotte Bellis, Al Jazeera, Kabul.
Let's go live now to Alan Fisher, who is at the White House. Alan, so the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, in Kuwait has given an update on this evacuation. What's he had to say?
Well, we know that the first flights are on their way. The first one left Kabul around lunchtime. They are heading to Dulles International Airport, which is just south of Washington. And the second flight is on its way to London. They will probably land first. Once they arrive here in the US, they will be taken to Fort Lee, which is an army camp in southern Virginia. That is where they will be processed for their SIVs, as they call them, special immigrant visas. Now, initially there was around 4,000 Afghans and their families who were expected to go through this process. Other countries have taken some of those numbers, so it's expected that the US will be dealing with somewhere in the region of 2,500. They can't process them in Afghanistan, quite simply because they don't have the resources. They're able to do it here. And Tony Blinken, as well as Joe Biden, has acknowledged that the US does owe a debt to these people and has to treat them properly.
The United States is committed to helping those who helped us during our time in Afghanistan over the last 20 years. And indeed, we've had very brave Afghans who have stood with us, with our soldiers, with our diplomats, mostly as translators and interpreters, and as a result of that service, benefit from the possibility of securing a visa to come live in the United States. We're actively engaged in that process, notably in relocation planning for those brave Afghans and their families.
Certainly the US wanted this to be a managed process. We know the deadline. We know that the US troops are going to be out of Afghanistan by the end of August. Joe Biden has said he wanted it to be by September the 11th. That has been brought forward. What they didn't want was a desperate rush at the last minute. Everyone remembers the famous scenes of the US Embassy in Saigon at the end of the Vietnam War, where people were being airlifted off the roof by helicopters. They wanted this to be much more managed, much more dignified, and that is why these flights are starting to arrive in the US now. Just one other thing, Tony Blinken, while he was in Kuwait, obviously discussed Iran. It's a topic you can't ignore in that neighbourhood. Interesting the language he used. He said that talks are ongoing in in Vienna, but those talks can't keep going on forever. And he said that Iran must come back into compliance. Just a reminder, it was the US that pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal under Donald Trump. Joe Biden said he wanted to go back in, but he hasn't done that yet. There's apparently a problem over one sentence, and that sentence that the US wants to introduce, according to the Iranians, is that the Iranians will continue to discuss other issues, such as ballistic missiles and its influence in the region. Iran not terribly keen to have that included in the nuclear deal. As far as they're concerned, they had a deal. It was working. International observers were there. So if anyone has got to come back into compliance, they believe it should be the United States.
All right, thank you very much for that, Alan Fisher at the White House. Well, let's take a closer look now at that operation to relocate those Afghan interpreters we've been telling you about. The US launched Operation Allies Refuge to evacuate around 18,000 interpreters, contractors and security guards. Thousands of their family members have also applied for the Special Immigrant Visa program. On Friday, Canada announced a similar scheme. Several thousand people are expected to be eligible. But it's a slightly different story in the UK. Former defence officials wrote a letter to the government asking it to do more to relocate Afghans who helped British forces. They say a number of applications for relocation have been rejected. Now, in Charlotte's report, which we heard earlier, she spoke with Arzu Amiri, who worked as a translator for the US Army in Afghanistan. She joins us now on Skype from Kabul. Thank you for joining us. So obviously you're still trying to get out of the country. Tell us about your experience.
Thank you so much for your question. As it is clear, and we are all aware, that the Biden administration has promised to evacuate thousands of eligible Afghans in the visa pipeline by the end of August, when the Americans' withdrawal from Afghanistan will be completed. Exactly who is included in this plan, which is still unclear in future. And due to my experience, we have not received any email, any feedback from them yet. So,
what's your? When did you put the application in? How long have you been waiting for?
I have applied in 2017, and it has been more than 3 years that I have applied for SIV, and still I don't have COM approval for that. So it looks like I'm in the first stage of the SIV, and the question is why it's taking too long, only just to get COM approval. And at this point, while they are doing evacuation, so there's a question: am I gonna be in that list or not? And not only me, and the other applicants who are waiting for their COM approval. And those who have appealed and they're still waiting for approval, are they going to be included in the next evacuation list or not?
This must be hugely, worrying for you. What does staying in Afghanistan mean for you and for your security?
Everybody's aware, and you can be witness through the social media. The security is not good at all, and living conditions have become very difficult for Afghan allies. And at least 300 Afghan allies or family members have been killed to date. And some interpreters who are outside the Kabul, and they are mostly at the high risk. And we are all we can feel them. And even if they're inside in the Kabul, they're not safe. And you can see all these through social media. So at all these applicants, all these Afghan allies who served and aided the US government during their mission in Afghanistan, so now they're all left behind, and they're feeling so fear, and they cannot survive here anymore. So not only them and their family and everyone, they're just fearing that when it be their turn to die or to be hunted down.
What about you? Are you worried about your own safety and the safety of your own family?
Exactly. Why not? Since I started working with the US government, I've been facing lots of threat, and still I do. And that's only not the case for myself, it's for my whole family, kids, husband, and everyone. So at least I would be blamed for everybody. If anything happens to the family, so everybody would blame me for that. So that's why we expect the Biden administration at this point to help us as soon as they can. And the evacuation should be not only for those which they are at the last steps. Since we don't have any missed documents, so everything is completed, why just it's bothering us? So, because we help them a lot now, it's the time they must help us at this situation, because half of the country is under the control of the Taliban right now, as you can see, and they never gave up for the distractions. Of course, we are at the high risk right now, and all the applicants, they have family, they have kids, and I'm sure they're all worrying about their lives.
Absolutely. Just quickly, before we go, what message would you have for those who are organising the evacuation of people like yourselves who have worked for the US Army in Afghanistan? What would be your message?
Yeah, the evacuation is really good process, and I'm really happy for that. And I have seen in the social media that they would start on Thursday afternoon, the first flight for the evacuation, and would be like 250 people. And it's really good for them for the future. Once they get there, they would be just for a week there, then they can go for their final destiny. But for those who are still independent, and like me and like other applicants, we are just worrying about our situation. So are they gonna take us to the third country, or some military bases in the US? So it's not clear yet, so nobody can tell us, and we are not receiving any notification, any email from the embassy or from any other parties. So my message is for them, I wish them really good luck, and I wish they can survive there, and I'm sure they would have safe life along with their children, so still they can serve for the US government once they get there. And as we know, they are all educated people, all these translators, and we know they're all educated along their family, and their kids can be a good generation to the US government.
All right, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. Arzu Amiri there, former translator for the US Army in Afghanistan.
Thank you.